for quite some time, I've wanted to do this series about what's unique about macrobiotics, because there's so many things that are distinctive, and now vegetarian and vegan diets are becoming, mainstream and very, very well known. And macrobiotics has some similarities because it's largely vegetarian and it can be vegan, and a lot of practitioners are vegan, while others include fish or possibly some other animal foods. But what's unique about macrobiotics is, number one, macrobiotics is based on human history and experience over the past 10,000 years. And all of the world's long-standing civilizations had certain lifestyle practices and dietary practices that were very, very similar. And this means all of Asia, India, all of the Middle East, all of Europe, East and West, North and South, and Africa. And they all had very things that were unique and common. George Osawa is the founder of modern day macrobiotics. Others have used the name before him, but he's the founder of modern day macrobiotics. And he used these basic principles to recover his health when he was young. And he had a unique ability to observe and synthesize things that have been done throughout the world and then codify them as what we call macrobiotics. And what he did is he created a series of models that can guide all of life. And the first one is what he referred to as the unifying principle, which really shows about the unity of all things as well as the diversity. So how the infinite oneness, or some people say God or nature, has produced this world and how we're connected to it. And one of the things I'd like to bring out, and one of them is about our connections, how we're connected to nature, the universe, and each other. And this is an inherent part of macrobiotic philosophy. Together with that, George Osawa created other models. One of the ones I find the most valuable is his definition of health. When we think of health, the modern definition is the absence of illness. Well, that has nothing to do with health. Health is something that can be divided into physical, mental, and emotional, and spiritual qualities. So George Osawa, clearly listed what things constitute a truly healthy person, which gives us a model of what to strive for in our journey towards health. He also understood that disease follows a pattern and created the progressive development of illness, and many other practical models that were part of our life and an intricate part of my healing practice. The other thing that George Osawa did that was unique was he took the philosophy of yin and yang and changed it to a physical classification. So right now, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, has become very popular, and they use the metaphysical classification. And many people have criticized George Osawa and macrobiotics, saying that the physical classification is not traditional and is not accurate. However, I beg to differ. George Osawa's real goal was not health. George Osawa's real goal was world peace, to create a healthy, peaceful society. And his thinking was healthy, peaceful individuals together create healthy communities, societies, and planets, so to speak. So how to create peace through healthy people. And in order to do that, he had the idea of unifying East and West, taking the unique qualities from the Far East and the West and uniting them, combining them together. And in order to do that, he understood that the philosophy of yin and yang, which is a marvelous philosophy, it guides my macrobiotic practice, my healing, my life, pretty much everything. It's an inherent part of what I do. But he realized that the physical classification by structure rather than function, can work with science, physics, and medicine. So to create a common language, so to speak, he created the physical classification, which I'd like to speak about at some point. So rather than being a deficiency or detriment of macrobiotics, I think it's one of his most brilliant insights. Another one of George Osawa's brilliant insights was based on the Japanese idea, Shindo Fuji, that we are one and inseparable from nature and the environment. I'll repeat that. We are one and inseparable from nature and the environment, actually from each other. And based on that idea came his idea of eating indigenous foods. Foods that have originated, country of origin, in a similar climatic region to which we live. So another one of these webinars I want to spend on the macrobiotic view of indigenous foods and how it relates to local. So how to create a totally unified approach to eating and living that I believe is completely unique to macrobiotics. Because if we're vegan, we're just avoiding all animal and dairy foods and maybe products. If we're vegetarian, we're avoiding animal and dairy foods. And most people involved in those practices are very caring about the environment and animal welfare, which we are in macrobiotics as well. However, the philosophy, which also creates the overall macrobiotic lifestyle, and in our SHI approach to macrobiotics, how we eat is just as important as what we eat. So it's eating habits. So these are things that I'd like to explore. The other thing about macrobiotics that I think is unique, since it's based on human history and understanding, things that have been done for hundreds and thousands of years of the greatest civilizations, now and in the past, most everything that we've said in macrobiotics, starting with George Osawa more than 50 years ago, is now being verified by science. So macrobiotics is not based on science, it's based on human history and experience, interpreting and understanding the experience of those who came before us and applying it now. However, science more and more all the time is realizing the accuracy and the wisdom of that and verifying and validating everything that we do. And as a way of passing or making macrobiotics more available, I'd like to introduce you to the ultimate guide to eating for longevity that I did together with my wife, Susan. And I really think of this book as the Bible for health. It's really the indispensable guide to diet, to lifestyle, and to delicious, healthy cooking. And I have to underline delicious, healthy cooking, emphasize, because many people have the idea if it's healthy, it's not good for you. And if it's good for you, it doesn't taste good. However, this macrobiotics is based on traditional diets, traditional cuisine, whether it be Japanese or Korean or Italian or French or Lebanese or Mexican, Indian, it's Ethiopian, or, it's based on traditional cuisine. That means it's real food, it's real cooking, and it is delicious because we use the best quality ingredients available. So this book is our attempt, based on more than 50 years experience of macrobiotics, to simply codify all the points that are important in this lifestyle and to show how delicious and varied this cooking is. So that brings me to the point that I wanted to talk a bit about myths in macrobiotics, because there's so many myths about everything. So right now, everything that's healthy, so to speak, is under attack. Brown rice is under attack for arsenic. Wheat and barley and oat wheat and barley and rye because of gluten. Corn is almost obliterated because of GMOs. Then soy products, which are among the healthiest foods on the planet, are under attack. Organic is questioned whether it's good, and this goes on and on. So healthy things really are under attack. It's part of the mythology. And the biggest mythology in macrobiotics is promoted by Wikipedia. And, you know, when I first came across Wikipedia, I thought, well, this is an open and free encyclopedia, and anyone can contribute. Then when I read the entry on macrobiotics, I thought, wow, that's terrible. I mean, it's beyond terrible. And I've been told 1,000 people a day view it. Alex Jack, who wrote the books with Michio Kushi, who was for many years the world's leading authority on macrobiotics, tried to change it unsuccessfully. I did the same. I spent a few days rewriting the whole entry, and everything that we posted was deleted as quickly as we could post it, literally, almost instantaneously, saying everything I said was private interest. Well, I've been doing this more than 50 years. I'm familiar with all the major teachers, all the major schools, so I would consider myself a macrobiotic expert. I mean, I'm considered by many. It wasn't self-interest, it was to demystify what it is and correct it. So the Wikipedia entry starts off with a macrobiotic diet, or macrobiotics, is a fad diet based on ideas about types of food drawn from Zen Buddhism. Now, what's interesting is they take some truths and cleverly make them sound weird. Then the diet attempts to balance the supposed yin and yang elements of food and cookware. Well, yin and yang has been used in the Orient for at least 5,000 years and has created an incredible lifestyle and healing practice which uses yin and yang that we enjoy today. So the diet attempts to balance the supposed yin and yang elements of food and cookware. Okay. So macrobiotics may be the only way of eating that's not a fad, because it's based on 10,000 years of human experience and cuisine. So 10 to 12,000 years ago, after the last ice age receded, agriculture was rediscovered and grain cultivation began and was spread over the next several thousand years around the world. So every continent had grain cultivation. Then, if you look at the pattern of all of these long-standing traditions, which I've already mentioned, they all had a diet based on grains, beans, and vegetables, seeds, nuts, and fruits, together with naturally pickled and fermented foods, mild beverages, and mild sweets. This is the pattern. Grains, beans, vegetables, seeds, nuts, and fruits, naturally fermented foods, together with mild sweets and beverages. And they also had healthy lifestyles. So what I'm trying to say is this type of cooking was practiced everywhere in the world. And I'm going to devote one, of these webinars devoted to looking at it in more detail. But for example, if you look at Italian cooking, you have grains, you have rice, you have pasta, you have polenta, you have millet, you have all kinds of beans, you have vegetables, you have mushrooms, you have soups, you have fermented vegetables. So you have all of the elements. You have, traditional unyeasted sourdough bread from the past. If you look at Lebanese food, it's the same thing. You have rice and bean dishes, you have beans, you have all kinds of soups. I mean, it goes on and on. In other words, macrobiotics is not a fad diet. It's a traditionally based diet in the world's long-standing civilizations. It's passed the test of time again and again. Then it goes on to say there is no high quality clinical evidence that a macrobiotic diet is helpful to people with cancer or other diseases and it may be harmful. Neither the American Cancer Society nor Cancer Research UK recommends adopting the diet. Well, Michio Kushi, who was my teacher, was the major proponent of macrobiotics worldwide for many years, spent years gathering case histories. And he compiled 6 that people who had diagnosed terminal illnesses had no medical treatment and had complete recoveries. He presented those 6 case histories before NIH. And out of those 6, 3 were accepted as irrefutable. There was no explanation other than macrobiotics for the recovery and long-term health. Based on that, Michio was sure macrobiotics would get serious funding to do research to show the efficacy of macrobiotics as a healing art. But guess what? We got almost no money, not enough to do anything. His son is a researcher and was in charge of that. And it was such a huge disappointment because there's no money in people creating their own health from common foods without medicines and medical treatments. So there probably never will be, at least in the foreseeable future, any research that validates macrobiotics. Why should they? Okay. Then it goes on. The macrobiotic diet is a type of fad diet. Most macrobiotic diets are not nutritionally sound. Well, I mentioned our book, The Ultimate Guide to Eat for Longevity, and Colin Campbell, T. Colin Campbell, a medical researcher, wrote the foreword. Colin Campbell is a PhD who did the China study, the largest nutrition-based research ever done, 6,000 people, or 6,500 people over 6 years in China. And basically, his research comes from the opposite extreme. He comes from science, we come from history and human experience, but the conclusions are the same. Diet can cause and reverse cancer and other modern degenerative illnesses. It's not the nutrients that give the benefit, but it's the nutrients that contain the foods. And there is a whole food plant-based diet. And it's more than diet, it's diet together with lifestyle. In other words, epigenetics, factors beyond genetics control how our genes express themselves. The most powerful epigenetic factor is food. His research also showed that a whole foods, plant-based diet can inactivate viruses, all viruses, including the coronavirus, COVID-19. So the point I'm trying to make is that not only is macrobiotics not a fad diet, but the conclusions are really the same as the best science we have, and there's no better diet nutritionally. So macrobiotics is often criticized for lacking minerals, lacking calcium. Well, the best calcium on the planet is greens and beans. There's really no better. Because calcium is one of the most abundant minerals in the Earth's crust. If it grows on this Earth, if it grows in soil, it's got calcium, together with all the other important minerals. The minerals that we need are in the soil. The plants take them, the grains, beans, and vegetables. We eat them. Now, they said it was drawn on principles from Zen Buddhism, and there is a certain degree of truth in that because Giorgio Sala fashioned macrobiotics after Japanese temple cooking, because Japanese monks have a history of health and vitality and longevity. They're strong, vital, long-lived people who follow the same pattern as all the other countries, except with 2 additions. They use traditional soy products, miso, shoyu, which is natural soy sauce, tofu especially, tempeh, soy milk, edamame, and they also eat seaweeds, a source of minerals. So Japan has the greatest health and longevity of any country still, although they're losing it because they're getting away from the traditional diet. But we just read an article comparing the 1975 Japanese diet with the modern one, and there's no comparison. The 1975 diet was still very healthy, but the point is they have a uniqueness because they use soy products and seaweeds. So there is a certain truth. There are roots in Zen Buddhism, as well as other cultures, but there's a valid reason for that. Then the last thing I'd like to say, so besides saying that, is that children may also be particularly prone to nutritional deficiencies resulting from a macrobiotic diet. Well, I have 10 children. They were all born and raised macrobiotically, meaning they were nourished by this way in the womb. With a lot of my kids, there was not even to eat fish, so they were nourished on a vegan macrobiotic diet. Most macrobiotic kids don't care for protein. They don't like beans. They don't like tempeh. They like cabbage. They like broccoli. They like tofu. Some like fish. A lot don't. But all of my kids, not all of them, almost all of them were in the top 50% for height and weight in the class. So not only were they not malnourished, if you compare macrobiotic children with others, in every case, their bones are thicker than their friends. In other words, they have what I would call supernourishment. Then they're saying macrobiotic diets have not been tested in women who are pregnant, who are breastfeeding, and the most extreme versions may not include enough of certain nutrients for normal fetal growth. Well, all my early children were born at the Natural Birthing Center in Bryn Mawr, outside of Philadelphia. And there was a doctor there who delivered all the kids. And he wanted to do research on macrobiotics in pregnancy because he told me, he said, most women's placentas are diseased. They have holes in them, they're not as they should be. But macrobiotic women have whole, undiseased placentas like he hasn't seen in any other women. So, again, macrobiotics is not deficient for pregnancy, it's 100% the opposite. Macrobiotic women have the best pregnancies, the best childbirth, and the strongest, healthiest children. So what I'm saying is the mythologies that surround macrobiotics are preventing so many people from adopting this way of life and getting the benefits. And I really want to create a library for people to see what's really unique, what we have to offer, because I sincerely believe our time is coming. There is more and more understanding about the benefits of the whole foods plant-based diet. And since our approach is a whole lifestyle, including how to eat, what type of activity, and what type of lifestyle practices, it adds, it complements the diet, which is already unique. And I decided for these, presentations, short 20-minute presentations, that I wouldn't have any Q&A, but you can send questions to Tehran at info@shimacrobiotics.org, info@shimacrobiotics.org, and Tehran will compile the questions for me, and then I'll try to answer them in the next webinar. And after this series on what's unique about macrobiotics, then I want to do one which is basically a study guide for a book to explore some of the things, why different things are in the book and why they're important to understand to really have a successful macrobiotic practice, which means to have a healthy life and nourish your longevity. And the final part that I'm intending to do is interviews with unique macrobiotic practitioners around the world, macrobiotics around the world. And to show that this is really a global practice and it's adapted to so many cultures. And there's so many people that are doing wonderful things that I'm sure you've never heard about. And I want to make these people known and what they're doing and their contributions. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for this opportunity. And please send any comments to us, any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them in future videos. Thank you very much.